Not too long ago, I was feeling a little delusional, so I decided to go on Reddit. I saw a trend where people were ranking all of the mainline Pokemon games on a tier list. Being a person who likes Pokemon and has opinions, I decided to give it a go. I'm happy with my tier list, and I think it still accurately reflects my opinions on Pokemon, and I actually got a few people who agreed with me. There were, of course, several people who disagreed with me, which is fine, by the way. And because it's the internet, some were far nicer than others. But what surprised me the most was to find that my opinions on Black and White, and that they are better than Black and White 2, was my most controversial opinion. This was a shock, since I previously thought that this was the popular opinion, but apparently I was mistaken. Since I've made that post, I've thought a lot about my opinions on Black and White and its sequels, and that's what I'd like to share with you today. Hi, I'm Jackstev, and I try to generate discussion and make people think more about the games we love. I'd like to first state that everything in this video is my subjective opinion, and if you disagree with anything, feel free to share your opinion in the comments. I genuinely love to hear what you guys think, as long as we keep it civil, of course. I'd also like to mention that while I prefer the original Black and White over Black and White 2, I still enjoy both games. I just enjoy one more than the other. Lastly, before I get into the actual video, I'd like to thank you for watching. It means a lot that you take the time out of your day to listen to what I have to say about a game that came out in 2005. Anyways, on with the video. One of my favorite parts of Black and White was Team Plasma and how they interacted with the world. Most Pokemon teams are usually very shallow and feel kind of unthreatening. I really love how Team Plasma basically wins for a little bit, with N becoming the champion. And I love N and his relationship with Team Plasma and the player. In fact, I made a whole other video talking about N, which I'd recommend watching after this one if you haven't already. But most of all, I like some of the subtlety with this evil team. Most evil teams have some grand plan for world destruction, usually following something like, "I'll destroy the world and rebuild it in my image," or something like that. I'm looking at you, Cyrus, Maxie, Archie, Lysander, Chairman Rhodes. Wait, how many of these guys are there? Seriously, why are there so many literal terrorists plaguing these children's games? But that's what makes Team Plasma so interesting. They don't try to take over the region by force, but through authority. You see, while Team Plasma's real goal is to control the region by taking everyone's Pokemon and leaving them defenseless, they mask it under this disguise of Pokemon liberation, where they tell the people that their real goal is to free Pokemon from the trainers that are abusing them. This is really clever and leads to the villains that feel a lot smarter and more original than the villains we've seen in the other games. It's not like their one way to complete their goal is to abuse some legendary Pokemon and make some kind of death weapon. So in Black and White 2, Team Plasma uses an Ice Ray powered by the legendary Pokemon Kyurem that they've captured to destroy cities, which they then hopefully plan to freeze the entire region of Unova. Look, I'm not trying to say Team Plasma isn't good in Black and White 2, but they just feel a lot less original and a lot more like the rest of the series. It seems to me that Team Plasma kind of reverted back to the old way of Pokemon writing, where teams' motivation and characters feel a lot more, well, black and white. Pun intended. It's not just Team Plasma where I have this criticism, however. I find this in a lot of Black and White 2. It's no secret that when the original Black and White was released, it was not received very well from long-term fans. A large reason for this was because that Black and White are a big change from the usual status quo of Pokemon games made before it, and a lot of people dislike these changes, but personally, I feel that these changes are what makes Black and White special. Seriously, if you're a Pokemon fan and you haven't played these games, I will tell you that these are the closest you can get to a Pokemon game that feels new and refreshing outside of just playing spin-offs. I personally felt that after the release of Black and White, the development team was scared to make big changes because they didn't want the second game to have the same reception as the first one did. Here's a few examples of this. First off, in the original, there are two rivals, and they both had surprisingly interesting personalities. In the sequel, there's one rival, and he has the same over-energetic and confident personality that all of the last game's rivals did. In the original plot, Team Plasma was directly connected with the Pokémon League and beating the game. Here it's the same, beat the evil team, then challenge the Pokémon League. They also have a kind of replacement for N, just named Colress, and he's alright, but he just seems a lot more like a standard guy than N did. They'll never replace my boy. But, of course, one of the biggest changes with Black and White 2 is the roster of Pokémon you find. Probably one of the most controversial things about the original Black and White is that the entire Pokédex throughout the game is made up of Pokémon that were never seen until that point. This means, throughout your game, you will be using a full team of Pokémon you've probably never used before. Many people really did not like this, and one of those people included me when I first played the game. I'm normally the type of person who plans their whole team out and makes sure they're all good, but I was very annoyed to find out how low stats all of these Pokemon had and how they all evolved super late into the game. But after playing for a while, I started to actually like this change. Since I was using a bunch of new Pokemon instead of the same overpowered ones that I've used in the past, I was discovering new strategies I would have never have used. Take the Pokemon Emolga for example. Emolga has a base stat total far below 500, which is my usual minimum, and it didn't even evolve. In any other playthrough, I would have discarded Emolga in an instant. But in Black and White, after struggling with an Emolga I faced in a nearby gym, I decided to catch one and give it a try. What I learned was by using Double Team and paralyzing moves, I could easily cripple any foe, then Volt Switch into a stronger Pokemon and take them out. And I had a blast. I was really reminded of when I was younger and I was playing Pokemon for the first time and everything was new and I had to figure out what worked and what didn't. Sure, it made the game a lot more challenging, but challenge isn't necessarily a bad thing, since it made the game more challenging in a way that I'd have to be more creative with what Pokemon I liked enough to use. However, this changes greatly in Black and White 2. Along with all the original Black and White Unova Pokemon, they added a whole bunch of older ones as well, and I find this disappointing. First off, I no longer feel as challenged by this game as I was in the past. I don't have to think all that creatively, I just have to use the same overpowered Pokemon that I've used before, and that kinda stinks, especially when the Pokemon from Unova are much weaker in comparison. There are many gyms repeated from the first game, which I actually think is pretty cool, but when they once challenge me, they get turned into an absolute cakewalk, because I'm now fighting with Pokemon that they weren't designed for me to have. Sure, I could have just not used the returning Pokemon and instead only used Pokemon originally from Black and White, but I personally don't think that's very fair to this player, especially since if you give the player two options, where one of them makes the game more fun yet a lot more challenging, and the other one makes the player more powerful and makes the game easier, most players will almost always pick the one that makes them stronger unless they're purposely trying to challenge themselves. To wrap things up, I personally think Black and White 2 are worse than the original Black and White, because they trade in a lot of what made those games special for a more familiar experience. And I think that's a shame, but at the same time, I can see an argument that maybe people like the sequels more because they are more similar to the other games. Or maybe people disagree for a completely different reason entirely. And that's okay. This is an open discussion, so feel free to talk about it in the comments. But do remember to keep it civil. Video games are subjective after all. Whether or not you agree with me, thank you for watching. I'm a small channel, so I appreciate you watching all the way through. If you really enjoyed it, I'd recommend my video where I talk about N. And if you really enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe or share this video with a friend who you think would like it. Truly, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.